The Koeberg Alert Alliance and eNCA are raising concerns over Eskom's application to extend Koeberg nuclear power plant's license. Now, this comes after recent reports announced that a contract was already secured by the US company Jacob Engineering Group. The organization say the fact that this contract was announced before the NNR had indicated they received the life extension application from Eskom is deeply concerning. Now, to talk more on this is none other than eNCA's Liz McDade. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, Parliamentary and Energy Advisor Liz McDade. Now tell me, Liz.
Good morning.
Thank you for being here with us. Why are you concerned about the Koeberg license extension?
Well, Koeberg was probably built in the 70s. It's been running since the mid-80s, so it's an aging power station. And if you're going to extend its life, you would then need to take into account all the necessary safety concerns. And if we think about Cape Town's population, for example, how it's changed from the 1970s to now, there obviously needs to be a proper regulatory process before you just start doing the engineering bits. And that's what the law says. The National Nuclear Regulator is supposed to make a decision, and before they make a decision, they must consult the public, which gives ourselves and potentially other technical engineering types or those to raise these concerns and be sure that we know what they're doing.
So safety,
very, very concerning.
So safety being a very huge factor here for you. Now, what would be your next steps, and can it be challenged?
Well, if they're going against the law, certainly it can be challenged. But what we want to know at the moment is what is actually going on. Why are we signing, or why is Eskom, which doesn't have any money, signing 20 billion rand contracts to extend Koeberg? Do we even know if it's financially or economically viable to do that? Maybe the business case is you close it down and you invest that money in new power stations, because you can see what's been happening with the rest of the Eskom fleet. That it's as it ages and it breaks down. But this is a nuclear power station which has a whole range of course, much more toxic consequences.
Yeah. And you mentioned earlier the public, they have a role in all of this, do they?
Yeah. So when the NNR, and we also believe NERSA has to give an electricity generation license to extend that, because that license also comes to an end. These regulators need to take the inputs of the public seriously, to consider them and bring them into their decision-making process. And just to give you an example, France, which built Koeberg, France is also having this idea of potentially extending its nuclear licenses. But what they are doing is they are technically trying to improve the safety, because if we look at Koeberg, as I said, built in the 70s, therefore that was the design. Then we had Chernobyl nuclear disaster, 1986, and we had Fukushima, 2010. So the nuclear industry had to learn from that and bring in a whole lot of safety features in order to make sure that they protect the public from nuclear radiation. And Koeberg obviously doesn't have those. What will be the role of the NNR? Is it going to insist on that, or is it just going to let, in a rather lackadaisical manner, I would say, let Koeberg carry on?
Now, as you mentioned, France and all those other countries, now, globally, nuclear power is controversial. Should we be extending the life of Koeberg? I mean, you already said it's going to be a very cost-effective job as well. So what are your thoughts on that?
So why don't we rather pick our cheaper, more affordable electricity resources and use them? I mean, South Africa's got this amazing solar resource, best in the world, one of the best in the world. Why don't we tap into that? We've got storage technologies which are coming to the fore. These are the things we should be investing in, rather than like going backwards into outdated technologies like nuclear, in our view.
Okay, great. And you don't think that there are plans in place to maybe make Koeberg station a bit better?
Well, I certainly hope there are, but what is concerning is that we've got this contract being signed without any of the regulatory processes in place. Meantime, the NNR is holding public hearings in Tuispunt in the Eastern Cape. So what is that? Is that some sort of like distraction. Meanwhile, while they try and slide Kuberg in under the radar, and yeah, Alta will not let that lie.